Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Joe.
I'm Parker.
And we're not live or back, really. So we're here.
We're here.
For another one. Anyway. Dude, I was watching this video the other day because you've seen First Man, right? And you know I'm into the airplanes sometimes. I can get into the airplanes. I can get into the airplane too. I tend to have I see fast plane. I'm like, interesting. So I was watching his, I don't know if it was the X-15 or whatever, but his flight, like that scene in First Man. And it was kind of cool. I don't know if they were trying to make it realistic, but it was kind of like a mundane movie for me. But I guess that was the whole point. Like, I rewatched the moon landing scene that they did for that movie, and I kind of am appreciating it because you know how I watched it first, actually? Cinemark. We got a free, because you got us in there for free, and we watched First Man. It was way back. I know it was sometime around when like Sicko Mode came out. That's how I put it into time perspective. 2018? Yeah, something like that. Because I remember thinking that when the movie was starting, I was like just humming.
Yeah. Fuck that Sicko Mode beat changes.
Yeah, so I didn't like it, but now looking back on it, I guess they were trying to make it realistic because I was reading through the comments and it made a lot of sense how people were saying they appreciated how the moon, like when he touches down, it's no like big cinematic score or anything. It's just he says his words, you know, the small step for man, giant leap for mankind, and then he just goes about his business. But they made it realistic, which I can appreciate now. I guess that's what movies are working towards, being realistic.
Show real life, yeah.
I mean, that's cool and stuff. I don't know about you. I've never had a personal like draw to space in general. Like I've had peculiar questions, but I knew like I was always aware. Like I've never had that moment where it's like we're in the middle of nowhere on a rock with a ball of fire in the sky. Yeah. You know, I've always been aware. Like I was
always like, not that I was like just aware, because you're just trying to like live in your little space that you're living in. But once you think about it, yeah, you become aware and you're like, okay, it's not that insane, because like, I mean, if you just look around at life itself, life is fucking insane. So thinking about floating in the middle of nowhere, the first time is scary, but every time after that you kind of just are like, huh, yeah, and you want to know more. But no, I don't think I've ever had like a personal draw. Like
it could be because we've seen the world so much, like all the HD pictures and the globes and everything, and it's all mapped out while we're alive in history, in human history.
Earth and see the Earth just floating there and shit.
Well, you know the Garrett Reisman guy, the astronaut. He was talking about his first time seeing. So he was just explaining. He was like, when you get up there. He's an engineer or whatever he does, and he's like, when you get up there yeah. He says when you get up there, you have a lot of work to do at first, right? So you're kind of busy setting shit up and everything. He's like, after about half an hour, I think he said, he prepared himself and he walked up to the window and he looked at the I think you were watching this clip with me. He looked at the Earth and he was like, my first reaction, honestly, was just meh, like whatever. And it's like, that's what he said. He's like, you know, he was saying what we kind of, or you and I kind of thought. He's like, some of these people kind of have a foolish concept, like, oh, we're all one. It's like, what did you expect to see, like, you know, drawn borders? You don't need to, and that's what he was saying. You shouldn't have to go in this day and age to space. I'm kind of echoing his sentiment here. You shouldn't have to go to space to understand where we are in this, with Google especially. Like, I'm not saying
with the information that we have and what you are able to get and find very easily on the internet. And you can just go to googleearth.com and that shows you basically what you're going to see in space, you know? You should have a pretty good understanding of what space, not like all the math and shit, but just a baseline understanding of what.
And I think most people do, though.
Yeah.
Like, you ever see those videos where, you know, going up to college students and asking about history, and they go up and they're like, when did this happen? What was the date, the start of, like, Civil War? What fort did they fire on? Where we both know, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, it makes you feel so smart when you watch these videos that have 4 or 5 million views, but it's like, how many overwhelming amount of people did you walk up to that day that did know?
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that we think that maybe our generation is so stupid, but you can't help it with the internet. It's, unless you're not asking the right questions, or maybe I'm naive and I'd be surprised, maybe people are just dumb, but you have the answer to every known question. That's not true. You have all the questions that have been answered by humans, you have the answer to in your phone. Like, you could Google any question that has been answered.
Yeah.
And people just don't. People still ask. It's fine to ask questions, but the real stupid questions is like, how could you not? You know, if you have that thought, just look down and Google it. It's not like you have to go do the work and go to a library and get a book on it.
Also, research the question too. If it's that kind of question, you know, if it's some easy question like, is like grass green? Yes, like, you know, but. Some other questions, and you can research that shit, and you should research that shit. You shouldn't just.
Maybe people just don't care. Like, why? Maybe people have other knowledge banks that they're interested in. But still, I think there's like a general thing of everybody knows this. Like, just base, like, hey, everybody's had. This is so overwhelmingly curious that every single person pretty much almost knows it.
It's been plastered everywhere.
Yeah.
That people know.
I don't know. My point was the space in general. What I was trying to say originally has never been really alluring to me, just because there's so many unanswered questions and it's so hard to comprehend the distances and like wrap your mind around all the equations and things. Even though you have a basic understanding of physics and the laws and all that stuff, some things can be pretty trippy to think, especially with space when they lay it out for you, and you really have to think about, because you could read like this black hole, this many pounds of force crushes it, and you just read it and you're like, oh, interesting. But then you like think about what that would look like in front of you, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, it's.
Or you can't even comprehend the distance. Like, you just kind of forget it. You just,
because also fucking our physics could like not apply out there, you know, physics, but when it gets down to it into like different planets and stuff, it may react differently. I
don't know. I can't do this because I have no idea. But like my dumbass, I was like 12 before I found out Jupiter didn't have a surface.
Yeah, gaseous. How do you say gaseous?
Gaseous planet. I don't know. I was like, what do you mean you can't just walk around? Looking teacher, you know, my 12-year-old said, this goofy bitch told me that planet you can't walk around. Like, what?
Because if you like in your mind when you think about like our planets,
we're crusty over here on Earth.
We do
thin crust pizza.
How thin crust is it though?
It's pretty thin.
I mean,
compared to the other insides of the Earth. It's pretty thin, crusty crust. So.
Are we comparing Earth to pizza right now?
Of course.
You know what's weird? Out on my Washington trip, I saw Mount Rainier from the Portland Bridge, right?
Yeah.
Like connecting Washington and Oregon. And that was 143 miles from where I was sitting to like the mountain. It was 143 miles. Which is longer than here to like Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, what the fuck? Like that is insane to me. But if you, I like started researching this stuff.
Like as the crow flies again, or like 100? Like, did you type it into Google Maps?
Google Maps.
Okay, so it gave you the driving distance.
Yeah.
So I wonder how.
So how many distance like
the map miles?
Yeah. But still, like getting from there to there. But then I got to like looking. And if you shrunk the Earth down to the size of like a marble or a pool ball, it would be smoother than both of those. Now, that's just weird to think about because that like the highest points and the lowest points on the Earth are less deviated than like the impurities or imperfections on the surface of the fucking cue ball or a marble. That's really fucking weird to think about because like.
Well, I mean, the whole universe in a pin of your finger was weird with the Big Bang, which is also kind of, I may be wrong, and I'll look it up, don't have to tap, but I think they can tell because of like, have you heard of the red light effect or whatever it is, blue light?
Blue light, are you talking blue light like from the fucking screens? Or, because that's the only blue light that I've heard of.
No, it's like how they tell with the universe how, that's why I can't even say it. I don't know if it's around the planets, or the stars, but it's like how they tell the universe is moving away or expanding.
Oh, it's like because light takes time to travel. Because the sun you're seeing or feeling is 8 minutes like from the past. So is it like the stars fading away because they're slowly dying or some shit?
I'm not sure.
And what's it supposed to prove that the
universe is expanding like blue light?
So there's
blue light shift, blue shift, red shift, blue shift.
So there's big bangs happening.
Here it is. The universe is expanding. Although the universe is expanding, not all objects are red-shifted. Some of the nearest stars, such as Barnard's star, are moving towards us, hence show a blue shift. So there we go. So red shift is the universe is moving away, or not the universe. whatever it would be. A blue shift is any decrease in wavelength, which means increase in energy, with a corresponding increase in frequency of an electromagnetic wave. The opposite effect is referred to as a redshift. In visible light, this shifts the color from the red end of the spectrum to the blue end. So if it's moving away from you, you see the red shift. If it's moving towards you, you see the blue shift. So the universe is red shifted right now. It's moving away.
Oh, so it's expanding.
So it's expanding. But then there's an idea, does it get to a certain point where it stops, like it reaches the edge of whatever, or it reaches its max expansion point, and then it just red shifts and collapses back into a pin of a needle and then blows again. See, there's just so many things, but
fuck, dude.
I know, man, this could go on and on, but like my original thing, fuck if space is not interesting, bro.
Space is interesting to talk about, but would I want to have to do it as a job or have to go out there and be an astronaut? If they had a way to like where you could just get on a spaceship like a roller coaster and be out in space, fuck it, I would do it, right?
Yeah.
Be out there, but I don't think I could be an astronaut. Number one, I'm not smart, but it's also about what you have at your disposal.
Exactly.
So it's like,
and also who you are, like what you like.
Yeah. And so like if I feel like I do like space enough to where that if I did have everything handed to me and like I mean I still had to learn this shit and still had to work towards it, but I was like I had like a guideline. Like,
nah,
it was like,
I wouldn't enjoy it because you listen to these people like Carl Sagan. Everybody here, how you hear basketball players talk about basketball, or these people talk about this or that. To hear scientists talk about that is like, I don't feel that allure to it. You know what I mean? And I understand what it's just so much incomprehensible to me that I think I'm just too lazy to want to think about it. And what I mean is not space isn't interesting, but I pick and choose what I want to learn about space. It's not the whole thing like that. You know what I'm saying?
I have certain questions that I want to
exactly, answer. Or I want to look into. But my whole original point with Neil Armstrong is that everybody was always like, he was I don't know who said it. I swear I'm gonna fuck this up again. I don't know if it was Buzz Aldrin or Michael Collins or like fucking Jim Lovell. I don't know who, but somebody said that somebody with like a lot of credibility said Neil Armstrong was the best pilot they had ever known. Like apparently he was a super good pilot. And if you remember, I don't know what it was, but when he goes, I swear the dude comes off as a dork, the real Armstrong.
Yeah.
But he was like, the shit he did was badass. So it's like there's no way he could have been a dork because he wasn't like a pencil pusher. Like he was flying Mach 3 and he like, you know what I'm talking about? So but he even when he landed, he's like, the eagle has landed. He just sounds like, I don't know.
I wonder also if that's just like how it was, how like people talk back then.
I think he just was in a different mindset where he's just like, I don't need to show it off. I could
he can just do whatever the fuck he wants. He was just elevated.
Yeah, maybe that, or just a guy that was just really just wanted to fly. But I mean, something was wrong. I should probably look that up.
Oh, I remember.
Where he had to fly it further, and they didn't have like enough fuel.
He had to like coast the shit and like arc it. I remember that. Yeah, but also there's so many like, it's such a wide umbrella for the definition of dork. You
know how it was the Bell or something X11 or whatever, but he's flying up, right? So he gets dropped off the bottom of a B-52 or a B-29 something. He flew like straight up and he gets out of the atmosphere and he tries to go back in and he's like losing altitude. You see the altimeter dropping, and then he hits like, I don't know what it was in feet, I forgot. But he starts gaining altitude, and he had no hydraulic controller, like no whatever it is. The stick's not working, right? Nothing's working. You're in space, and it's an airplane, right? Like a jet engine won't work. So he's skipping off the atmosphere. That's how Earth's rejecting him. It's like a shield, like a natural. So he's going back. So he's panicking, and what he does is I think it was some kind of cooled booster or whatever to on his wingtip. You know how you see the little like when you see the lunar landing or something, you see that it looks like little bursts of smoke. But I think he did that with his wing, and he like went sideways, and he just went through it, and he got through the atmosphere, like he just re-entered because he was skipping off of it.
Damn, can you imagine being in a like just the pod that brings you back? That's
yeah. Fuck, I don't know what that is.
I could not imagine being in that. How long was the space race?
Jeez, I don't know. Since World War II.
Yeah. So would you live in Mars? In Mars? Would you live on Mars?
I don't think I'd be one of the first.
I
don't think in my
5,000,
lifetime,
bro.
we haven't even got there. So in my lifetime, no, depending on how fast they move.
I don't know what year they wanted to send it, but I was just seeing they wanted to send like 5,000 people for like the first colony, which I don't think I could do that. Unless
Really?
they got me a bad beach. No, I'm kidding. Maybe.
Here, I found the moon landing part with Armstrong where he was piloting the lunar lander or whatever thing. So when Armstrong again looked outside, he saw that the computer's landing target was in a boulder-strewn area just north and east of a 300-foot diameter crater. So he took semi-automatic control of the whatever it is, the lunar lander or the whatever it's called.
He put his hands on the shit.
Yeah. Armstrong considered landing short of the boulder field so they could collect geological samples from it, but could not since their horizontal velocity was too high. What is velocity? Not speed, but what the fuck is velocity? Look up velocity. Phone. Their horizontal velocity was too high. Throughout the descent, Aldrin called out navigation data to Armstrong, who was busy piloting Eagle. Okay, rate of change of its position with a respective frame of reference. Great.
Great.
I'm just trying to find what... Okay, so I read through it, which I probably should have done before, but apparently the lunar module, he missed, or the original landing area was boulder strewn, so he had to fly over it, and he found a clear patch and landed it with 90 seconds of fuel left remaining.
That's spooky.
Yeah.
Me on the highway, 5 minutes out from the exit.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, he was before he went to space and before he did all that stuff, he was a fucking test pilot, bro. Like, that stuff was cool to read about with him and the stuff he was flying. I mean, all those guys, Aldrin and all those guys, I mean, they were crazy. They would fly repaired stuff sometimes, like planes that got repaired. They would test it out. Hey, go take this up, see if it's all good.
And if it's not, fuck you.
And here, test this new plane. You probably have top secret clearance or something. You're probably working, like, I mean, at that time, what were they doing stuff in where the salt flats and stuff? Over that? I don't know. All that stuff is kind of interesting. The early high-speed jet flight is kind of cool. That era of the early test pilot, like Chuck Yeager, who just died. Chuck Yeager, the first guy to go Mach, I think. So Mach 1, the speed of sound.
Yeah.
Which is not Mach 1, I think. It's like 1.8. I don't even. But that, when they dropped him off a bottom of like a B-29 too, and then just all that stuff where they had to, I don't know, just the progression of flight got cool after, I feel like, World War I, because you have Charles Lindbergh with his flight over the Atlantic, and if you look at that, if you read it about his flight, it's like a couple times he almost had to bail because like the thing was freezing and he couldn't fly, and then he'd get lower and shit, and it's like he took that northern route, so you could, I'm assuming, be over land most of the time. It's also the shortest route, kind of going up into...
You'd want to be over land instead of water for sure.
France, you know, which that's insane. Like, you just up there by yourself flying for what, a day or something? Who knows?
A day straight, or did he?
It's like, and everybody died before you, and you're just giving it a shot because you think your idea is the best. You know, I mean, how many? Look at Amelia Earhart. They can't even airport.
Amelia Airport. They should name an airport that. Look at her. She just where do you think she is? Do you think she's still alive?
I doubt it, because even if she survived, she's gonna be pretty old.
Bro, there is a lot of like
theories.
Weird shit that's happened with planes too.
There was theories about her. There was like a fake picture, I think, but it was like, it showed like World War II Japanese soldiers
with her. Yeah,
and it's like I don't think so, but maybe, you know, that's an interesting, entertaining idea there.
She went to Cuba where everyone else.
No, or they could have just killed her.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, are you American? Yeah. Okay. Bang bang.
Yeah.
They used. Well,
I'd rather a gunshot to the head than a sword.
Either way, you're dead. So
Either way, you're dead.
Who cares, really? I mean, at that point, they don't really. I'm assuming they don't hurt any different. It's pretty quick either way. So it's like, unless you got a dull blade.
Yeah.
Or a misfiring gun, then it's like, dude, what the fuck? Come on.
Ow, my fucking ear.
Yeah, well, it would just go click, but yeah, sure.
Unless he missed.
How do you miss if I'm pressing a gun up to your head, like literally? Then I'll just let you go because that's some divine intervention. I'd just be like, all right, fine.
You tripping. Well, I guess if you're not walking.
You tripping.
You're tripping.
We just start banging the gun, accidentally shoots himself, and you just like get up. So does this mean I can go?
Do I take his spot?
All right. Anyway,
on that note.
thanks so much for listeing.
Airplanes, deuces.